We're recording?
Yes, we are.
Open this up, Vito. We'll do it because I opened up last time. You can
All
open it.
right. Last time on Tavern Talk, we just went over a bunch of stuff from the Fleeing Sparrows campaign. Today we don't have anything specific we'll be covering, but I have a few ideas and questions that I'd like to actually ask you as a player. I know we went over a lot of DM talk last time,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it would be interesting to get a player perspective. So, or more of just an outside, like above the table, not DM, not player. So, first
Mm-hmm.
off, as a player, favorite NPC, living or dead, who would it be for you?
Favorite NPC, living or dead? From
And
from where?
why?
Our campaign? This
From
campaign
our
right now?
campaign, yeah.
Okay. Um. Living or dead? That's a hard question because there's so many memorable ones.
Okay.
Uh. Damn. So I'll walk you through my thought process. Favorite NPCs typically as a player are the ones that I've interacted with the most. Right? There's a lot of good ones like the fight. They're like their mechanics in fighting. So they have a really cool ability, or they're really fun to play around, or they have just some crazy stats that just seem totally outlandish, make them an interesting character because of that. But for me, and I guess a lot of people, it's more about the roleplay aspect of things and just how the DM can play them. Personally, I think probably Lefty. Lefty's probably my favorite so far. In terms of living.
Hmm. In terms of
Dead.
dead,
Dead. I don't know, because we've killed a lot of people.
true.
So NPC wise, I think I would just have to go Lefty. Like living or dead, it'd have to be Lefty. Because
Okay.
we've had so much interaction with him that it kind of feels like he's a fourth player, and it's great because he really blends in with the dynamic, especially with Rafi, my character. He's just so funny, and the Jude Lefty kind of romance is A tier. I just love sitting back and listening to it. I'm just like, whoa, what's going on? And then I always have that ready at the go. So much fun, so much fun. What
Yeah.
about you?
Honestly,
From your
out of all
perspective,
the
who's your favorite to?
NPCs,
No, no. Who's your favorite to play?
my
Who is
favorite
your
to
favorite to play?
play. Okay. So, controversially, um, my favorite in concept versus my favorite to play are two completely like opposite ends of the scale. So my favorite in concept for at least my villains, or not villains, is Wrath. He was my favorite concept. I loved him from the start. He was my favorite sin actually because of his whole character design and his whole dynamic with sort of controlling the weather and how he had environmental effects. My favorite to play was Father Red Eye because
Oh,
he
the Red
had
Eye.
such
That's
an
a good one.
eerie mist to him. I enjoyed playing up the sinister aspect of it, and just keeping myself very vague, very like withdrawn, almost on the back heel a bit, without giving too much, but also having that power fantasy of you are a powerful person in the world. But by doing this and physically dragging my finger across the air, you can shut your mouth. And it's very scary for certain people to have that moment of like, okay, this is
I guess
happening.
I gotta be quiet.
Uh, and some people don't like that autonomy being taken from them momentarily, but with you guys, I will say, you guys play off of it very well. Like Rafi, his reactions are either in that scenario, depending on how he's dealing with it, it's either fear where he just stays quiet, or he's like, oh, trying to like open his mouth back up.
Mhm.
With Jude, she's very like, whoa, most of the time, and then the later interactions with him, the fear kind of melted away, and it was more just frustration at the fact that she couldn't do anything. And then when you guys finally faced him, I feel like that was very cathartic that, you could lucidly dream, so he can't control you the way he was doing beforehand. However,
It's
it's a hard thing to get down right.
yeah.
What were you going to say?
I was gonna say that the whole like autonomy part of things, or like players kind of get antsy when their autonomy is taken from them. I think in this campaign it works because we do have a lot of autonomy already, and we talk with a lot of crazy people. Like we have the chance to talk with such like high ethereal creatures and high people of importance that being able like half of these conversations we shouldn't have said a word and thus spoken to. I think it plays very well into the like again the subversion of oh well I could talk to anyone I want because I'm playing this campaign and I've been able to, and then that moment when the power like the authority finally hits, I think it's much better, much more of like a no shit moment. Like okay, this guy's serious. Maybe I should shut my mouth.
Exactly. That's the other thing with certain gods, like Konkiro. He's not very force on to you things because his one thing is just, alright, collect souls, govern spirits. That's it. I don't care about mortals. I just care about them when they're dead. So if they're mouthing off to me, who gives a fuck? He'll evaporate, he'll fuck with you a little bit, but he won't outright be like, alright, dead. Because he can't do that. He can't just smite. Which is an interesting thing with the god of death, because you would think he would have the most control over who he kills. But he's actually the only god, or one of the few gods that cannot pull that trigger immediately and immediately kill you. However, there are consequences with fucking with him as well, But those remain to be seen if you do anchor him.
In a few months, we all can play again.
It is true. Now, if you could revive any currently dead NPC, villain, or anything, which one would it be?
Oh. Dang, dude. For me, it's gotta be like either gluttony. Because I didn't have too much time to talk with. It would either have to be gluttony, or it would have to be one of the Marquez or Smiley, probably Smiley.
Okay.
There's some sad stuff over there. A bit selfish.
Oh.
But hey, man, you're asking me the question. Definitely Smiley.
Oh, absolutely.
Because he was much. I mean, all the Marquez have like mad jokes, but I think Smiley, I jived much more and had much more fun. Not saying I didn't have fun with Slick. Slick is a lot of fun too, but Smiley just has a much more non-serious takeaway of things, especially since he's Smiley. He's always doing his thing. So I think that probably would have to be my choice. Maybe it would be Ray's father.
Ooh, okay.
He was a very big player in our upbringing as heroes, or as adventurers, if you will. We're not exactly heroes.
Not yet.
Well, it depends on who you ask. I definitely think
Depends
the other
on the
two in
perspective.
the party are heroes. I think but at some point, all of us are criminals.
To
somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Alcoy's wanted by the entire Rai clan. I'm getting hunted by the Karai, and Judah's knee deep in the Six Fingers like web of like syndicate. So that's also something I want to talk about. It's like I love how do I explain this? In typical D&D, your party is going to turn out to be good-natured heroes, and I like the fact that we know we're doing something good, or at least we believe we're doing something good, but everybody else doesn't think so. We have
Right.
these cool names, but everybody says like, "Oh, dangerous." You don't want to mess with those guys because they're doing something that we can't handle.
No.
And then other people are like, "We need them dead because they pose a problem to our society." Very fun. It makes me feel a little bit, makes me much more invested because I'm like, oh well, how can I build my legend? You
I
know,
like that
how
though.
can I spread my name, not spread my like, not be known as a hero, but be known as a legend.
That's a good
Not a
way
hero,
to
but a legend.
interpret it. I like that
Mhm.
better than being, oh, this great hero. Because hero connotates one thing. You're confined to being perfect and a paragon all the time. A legend?
A
You could be
legend can do
good, you could be
crazy
evil.
things. It doesn't need to be good or bad. They just have to be monumental.
Oh, yes. What else do I
So
have?
much fun.
If you had the chance to get any item or technique from this campaign, like
Tragedy
just pull
breathing.
it really IRL, just pull it from it
IRL?
and
Oh, maybe
just
not tragedy breathing.
like
It
I
has to be
know
force
the
breathing.
one that I would pull. I forest breathing. I mean, I kind of expected that answer. I'm not gonna lie.
Because I'm a bit of a goon. I love
Okay.
chilling in the woods, doing stuff like that. It would just be so cool to have like this ability to, like, I mean, force breathing is just so versatile that, especially second form, I'm in love with second form of like just not being physically impossible to move. Just like I'll take a deep breath and then all of a sudden nobody can jar me. Like the way I would use it is I would stand like I would like stand in a doorway and just wait. And like if somebody like, hey, excuse me, can I get through? I'm like, no. Or like if I could apply for a job as like a bouncer
Oh,
and just stand in front of the door, and like if somebody's just like, yo, let me in, I'm just be like, nah, buddy, sorry. Just force breathing second form, stand to the yoke, and like just post up outside. Excuse me, sir. You're not getting through this door until you see some ID.
I like that.
Oh, you're from
Personal.
Arkansas, huh? What's your birthday? Wrong. Answer fake. Just get to the back of the line, buddy. And then like,
Ah,
I'm
I
gonna go
love
through
it.
the forms right now. You know what? I'm gonna do this. I'll explain to you how I would use these forms in everyday life.
Please do.
Okay, so first form, falling tree strike, right? I lunge forward 10 feet, and I attack with both weapons or twice with one weapon, and I have an additional 1d6 to both attacks. So, the way I would use this is if I needed to just surprise the hell out of it, like if I needed to close distance really fast and just shock somebody, like, or if I wanted to not be seen by someone and just like, let's say there's a 10-foot, like, there's a hallway here and a hallway here, like a T section, right? I'm on this side and I need to get to this side, and as somebody's here that I don't want to see, I would just like shoot past them. Or kind of do the Batman thing where I just dip and I'm nowhere to be seen anymore.
Ah,
Or if
so
I could,
bomb.
do it vertically, yeah, kind of like movement style. Second form stance to the oak again, already explained, I would just kind of post up somewhere and not be able to be moved. Third form dancing leaf, additional 4 attacks. So I kind of interpret it just fluidity in general. Probably it's much more, I think it's much more, like, much more of a utility in everyday life. You just do things smoother, man. Just do things quicker. I'd probably do it to study, so I could
Mhm.
actually get work done for once. Like if I'm at my job and I'm folding clothes or something, I'll just be like,
Just
"Oh man, here we go." Real Steven Seagal, like, "Oh, it's just so fast." But fourth form connective roots, dude, I'd be using that a lot.
oh yeah.
I would just kind of get a beat on where everybody's at, or it's like, oh man, I'd be the best at hide and seek. If I could just post my arms up into the ground and be like, "Yeah, you're over there. All right, let's go." Just ruin the entire game for everybody.
Oh my
That
god.
would be fun. Fifth form shrouded leaves. If I have an awkward conversation, I would just cast that darkness around me and just dip. So like if I'm talking, oh, hello, Mel.
Mel's here.
I'm gonna say hi, but oh, there she goes.
Oh, she's gone.
No longer here.
She's
She
dead.
didn't say hi at all. She just left.
Ah, shame on you,
But
Mel.
fifth form shrouded leaves. It's you cast darkness in a 30-foot radius. I would definitely use that to get out of conversations. Again, Batman. I would just cast up the dust and just walk out of there. Oh, she's back.
Ah, darn.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey,
Can you
Mel.
hear me?
We can
Yes,
hear
we
you.
can.
What's going on?
Sorry, my device didn't have access to the microphone on Discord.
Ah, I see.
Okay.
Oh, there's
Oh.
Mel.
Why am I
Just posted in the middle of nowhere.
Mel's
I'm
in
just
the
out
woods.
here in the Midwest.
Very thematic talking about forest breathing, and Mel just ends up in the woods somewhere.
I'm actually in cornfields, if you must know.
Cornfield breathing.
Can we
First
get corn
form.
breathing?
Popped corn.
Corn breathing.
Third form, popped kernels. Just...
Unpopped kernel
Anyway,
in your teeth.
I just wanted to say hi.
Hi.
Yes, you'll end up in the recording.
I smoked a whole
There.
cigar today recording. Don't worry, I'm 21. I have the ID to prove it.
Premium Zaza. At Cuban
Premium
Zaza.
Zaza. I also took a shot of 40 proof alcohol.
40?
Is that not a lot? I feel like that's a lot.
40 proof is not a lot.
What is
Mel's
vodka?
also like 5'0" and like 2 pounds, so.
What proof is vodka? Like 20 proof?
It's like normal though.
40 proof is normal?
She
Yeah,
has a
pretty
terrible
much.
tolerance, I'm sorry to say.
I don't have a terrible
You do.
tolerance. What are you
You
talking
do.
about? No, I don't.
A lot of liquor's like 80 proof.
Oh,
Say so.
well, it tasted bad. I don't know where you think I
That's-
have a terrible tolerance from. I have a fine tolerance. I only have
I
a
will
bad
not- I
tolerance
will
when
not
I don't
comment
eat
on such
before I
things.
drink. Can't be associated with it.
No.
No. I'm a proud DARE graduate. I have the wristband and the t-shirt.
Dare.
Oh,
I
right.
dare you.
Oh my god, guys. The school police officer that taught me dare came into my job the other day. That's it. That's all. That's
okay.
the,
Oh,
that's the
okay.
entirety of the
There's more to
story.
this story.
It's an epic story of transformation and like the subversion
Loss
of.
and
Goddamn,
tragedy and rebirth.
I'm writing a whole campaign on that right now.
It just takes place. It's a totally normal high school. It's just no magic. It's just like I'm gonna roll to pass my test. All right,
I'm just
what's
gonna
a 6 do
roleplay
for me?
high school.
You
Just
got
high
that
school
one
musical
artificer
D&D.
just.
A Glee.
Mel, we were asking the question, if you could have any item or technique from the campaign in real life, which one would it be?
See, now that's a hard question. I really love Spirit Sight. I'm completely biased, but
I mean,
But
I
if I
chose
had-
forest breathing, so
yeah. Well, because Spirit Sight is like it's like getting more and more versatile.
Right.
You know, like I don't only have to use it to communicate with ghosts. I can also like pick up on other people's emotions, which I feel like I can do pretty well already. But it
you
would be
become
fun.
an empath, like an actual empath.
Like an
Well, also,
actual
my-
empath.
Also, my eyes turn rainbow and they change colors. Like that's fucking sick.
It's true.
Dope as that. Meaning a hard ass Instagram post.
Just
Right?
Put that in your
Um,
bio.
my eyes
Speaking
turn
of,
rainbow.
No, like I could just put the epithet.
Ah,
what was
Lady of
it?
the Rainbow Eyes.
Yeah. Lady of the Rainbow Eyes is so fucking cool.
It's a free vibe check. Like you can actually
Oh, yeah.
vibe check people.
It's true. It's true.
It's true.
If I had to pick an item, though,
An
I wanna
item?
put-
Oh.
I want to pick one of the swords.
Melanie, have you saw Enzo Rambo lately?
Hold on.
You go check on Enzo Rambo.
I shall come back and answer this question later.
Okay.
It's
I'll actually
okay.
answer that because I want to comment
Okay,
on the
I'm
items
gonna hop
part
back
of
on
it.
later. I'll talk to you guys later.
Peace.
So the items thing, I think I would want like, if I were to lose my arm, I think I would definitely want the prosthetic because it's just so cool to just like not have it work until you rev it.
I didn't even think about that item, I'm not gonna lie, when I asked this
Want to
question.
have a grappling hook? Just like if I just don't like you, I'll be like, yo, check this out. Just flashbang.
Oh my god.
The sticks, I mean, if they had the magic powers, of course, my Rafi's weapons, like be able to attach them like Darth Maul quarterstaff style.
Yeah.
But probably if I could have another power, it'd probably be like Wong's thing, like the techniques with his fist. Again, he's like does smithing, so it'd be really cool to just have that technique.
That makes sense.
Or maybe one of the sinner's things. I don't know which one it would be. Probably
Ooh,
envy.
envy.
Not envy.
Sloth.
Sloth.
Mm-hmm.
Sloth. Just mess around with people's minds.
Oh,
Be able to dip like Father Red Eye style. Just dip in there and
just
be
get in, get out.
Yeah, like
Mhm.
intrusive thought style. Just be like, if I'm just sitting down with somebody, I just go, fall out of your chair, and just and they just go. I'm like, yeah, what happened, dude? What's going on? I would never tell anybody I had it.
Just. Have you ever seen that TikTok where it's like anytime someone picks up a cursed magic item in D&D and it's like, kill your parents, Tracy, stab them, stab them, stab them.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, 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 whoa.
It's like, I'm gonna use my cursed book of necromancy to check this body. Yeah, you use it, and the book goes. The book goes. Yeah, you could be checking this body, but you know what you could also be doing? Just killing all of your friends. Do it.
I love that so much. But
The schizo book.
see, the thing is, if you're gonna have an evil magic item, as a DM, I don't like telling you it's evil, and I don't like being blatantly obvious that it's evil. If it's gonna be evil, it's gonna be like eked in there, and it's just gonna be like like little things, like little phrases that give you an off vibe. Nothing to like 100% be like, oh yeah, no,
Yeah,
you know,
kind
just
of
stab your
a thing.
friend.
Yeah, instead of being like, yeah, again, like, oh, it's gonna like the book tells you to kill your family. It's like the book tells you a phrase that you kind of go, that's weird.
Yeah, exactly. Or like it tells you a
or-
rhyme about like, looking into the future, you would be betrayed by those closest to you, of blood and family.
Yeah, just something ominous.
Something to put you on
Slightly
edge.
ominous.
Mm-hmm.
Like the type of thing where it's like, am I just am I just overlooking this, or am I actually like is it actually like evil? You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
That kind of thing.
It's definitely an
Very
interesting
freaking
thing to
fun.
play off of. Let's see. If you could have picked any other character to be right now, other than Rafi, who would you want to be?
Would I want to like play?
Yeah, play.
It'd probably have to be the tragedy breather, bro. It'd probably have to be the tragedy
okay.
breather. It just sucks that I couldn't talk to him more. Like he seems like such a powerful dude. I would
Yeah.
want to play him. I want to see how those techniques work.
Would
Just
definitely
a
be an
breathing
interesting
style
thing.
purely based on like being more powerful the more torment you and your friends take. So cool.
It's true.
Like it's inviting violence so you can become stronger.
Exactly.
Really cool.
It's almost it's like I can't think of any concrete examples, but it's like fighters who will hit themselves in the head to like amp themselves up.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
just
yeah.
bang,
it's
bang,
an
bang,
amp
bang,
up.
bang. All
Instead,
right,
it's
let's
just
go.
much more depressing.
Yeah, and it's just you remember when Grandma died? Remember
It's like,
it.
oh,
It's like,
what if I don't want to? It's like you must. It's like I get into a street fight and just start whispering to myself, "You're dumbass. It's all your fault." Just
Your
it's like,
parents
what
are
does this guy
getting a
do?
divorce because of you. Your parents.
Is he getting more muscular from saying?
Don't talk about his mother. Why? Does he get angrier? No, she died in a car fire. He gets sad.
The sadder he gets, the stronger he becomes.
Oh my god. That's
So tragic.
if I had to pick a magic item from the campaign, probably ooh, this is a hard one. It would be between one of the swords, like Mel said. It's either the sword she has in the sword with the 10-tailed fox, or Alcoy's fallen star metal blade. Those are my two favorites.
The Star Metal Blade is a good pick.
Oh, I love the Star Metal Blade. That is my favorite magic item that's ever been created, and I've used it in every campaign that I've had since, or I've at least offered it in every campaign I've had since. And every time it's been offered, the person goes, cool, and takes it. So, it's just so interesting to me because every time I offer it, the character I always I plan from the beginning to offer it to secretly has some connection to the stars or the night sky or this and that, and it's just so interesting to me. One of the guys I offered it to, I did not plan on him having a night sky motif, and he turns to me and he's driving me home from where we were one day because we were doing it in person at this time.
Mhm.
And he turns to me and he goes, yeah, Voyager likes to look up at the stars and kind of see stuff like that. And that's the reason I named him Voyager. It's after, the spacecraft. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense, that's pretty cool. And that whole thing of him looking at the stars, I originally always planned for him to get a star metal weapon. But then when he turned to me and he said that, I was like, this is perfect fit. So it always works out somehow, and I don't know if it's fate, I don't know if it's blind luck, I don't even know if it's just the players that I vibe with ending up, one of them always has some affinity for the sky, but it always works out in some way or another like that. So I don't know if you've seen any reoccurring tropes in your own campaigns that you would like to mention.
Recurring tropes. I mean, from a DM perspective, I like goofy NPCs, so I always throw goofy NPCs in there. Or the super serious NPC that if you interact with him enough, you find out he's just a super chill dude. In terms of player tropes and just general trends I see, there's always the super stoic or cool person. And I think that's a pretty staple of a D&D campaign. You need somebody who's really not cold, but more grounded and unshakable. So not everybody's freaked out. There's somebody there who's the anchor.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of the players are different. They might play the same classes, but they play them very differently, which is again another testament to D&D. You can take all these same classes and everybody just runs with it.
I would say so.
DM perspective, I don't exactly enjoy when somebody is how do I say this without sounding terrible?
Same character, different fonts?
No, that's fine. Because, of course, everybody's playing a character that is a reflection of themselves at some point. So if they want to play themselves in their campaign, it's okay, that's cool. It means it's easier for me because I can actually oh, what is this person like? All right, let me throw them in this situation. I don't like when people get too serious. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Get a little bit hostile with other players. Out of genuinely out of character, hostile. And that's kind of just a moral, a common sense thing.
No, yeah.
It happens way more than you'd expect. The whole point of D&D is to talk to your party and cooperate, and then when they're like, no, I just want to
see,
do this, DM.
That's interesting. I like that. See, that's always why I go above board if I am a player, which I've rarely been a player, like I keep saying. I know I keep bringing myself back to that point where it's I've never really been a player, but I've never played more than one session. But when I have been one, I've always talked to the other players about hey, would you be cool with this conflicting dynamic where I'm a bit of an ass to you, or do you want me to just be nice to you? Because I can play my character either way and it won't affect my experience, but if it's gonna make you mad at me, not my character, then yes, then I shouldn't be playing a character that annoys the party. However, if you want to play with a character that's a bit of an asshole and just, makes stupid snide remarks, then yeah, I could do that with you too. The best example of that kind of character I can give is from Estrella. Lang.
Yeah.
If you remember him. Mm-hmm.
Wait, who are we talking about?
The what's it called? The Way of the Four Elements monk I used to play for like 3 sessions, who riffed
Oh yeah,
off of Marcus and was very,
yeah.
you know, very like wisecracking, bit of an asshole most of the time. But again, I went above board with Marcus's player first, and I was like, all right, are you okay with me like being this way? And they were like, yeah, absolutely, this is fun, you know. It's a little bit of an RP aspect. So that's why I always check beforehand. I never like going in there playing an asshole without checking with everyone first, you know?
Hmm. It's I don't know. It's a very like classic D&D trope of the guy who takes it way too seriously, but it does exist. That's why it's a
It does.
trope. It's because there's always one.
Mm-hmm.
There's always one. There's nobody like that in this campaign. Everybody's
No.
pretty cooperative, which is
Yeah.
what I appreciate. It's why I'm still here. Because if I'm gonna play campaign and people are gonna be like, "Oh, well, I'm gonna do my own thing," no, why, dude? We're playing a game it's a party game.
Exactly.
Playing a party. If you want to play one person D&D with yourself, by all means, go ahead, be the DM and make your character do whatever you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not the one running the game. You're just playing it. You know.
Oh,
If
absolutely.
you're gonna go into a game like Dark Souls, and be like, oh well, actually this boss is immune or is this vulnerable to this sword that I have because I said so. It's like it's not gonna happen. You didn't design the game, so
No.
you're gonna have to play by the rules.
Exactly. Which is why I love the Dark Souls games too, because how you progress in those games. Personally, out of all the FromSoft games that I've played, Sekiro is my favorite because it sticks you with one weapon and it causes you to. The only variations you really have is, you know, what combat art you're using, what ninjutsu you're using, and what prosthetic weapon you use. And that's it. And honestly, I love that because you get stuck at a boss. It's not, okay, I'm gonna go back into this area and find this really overpowered item that's behind a secret wall that I can watch 3 guides to get to. It's, I need to bang my head against this wall until I can get through, and I need to figure out how to do it through sheer
You gotta put the work
skill.
in.
Exactly. That's why Elden Ring was a fun game for me, but after a while I lost a lot of interest. I would say my first few bosses in Elden Ring were the best bosses I've fought because I had to bang my head against the wall and I had to memorize the attack patterns. And then eventually I got to a point where I was like, alright, I'm gonna play a spellcaster and I'm gonna build this way. So I built up my intelligence, I grabbed spells, and I was like, alright, this is fun. And then I got bored after a while. I was like, alright, I'm spamming spells, this is no longer the game that I came in here for, it's not hard. And I didn't want to go back to bang my head against the wall. So the way Sekiro forced me into, you need to do this, you need to bang your head against the wall. It discouraged me for some time, I'll give it that, but eventually, I grew to love the game. And every fight was not, I need to get through this fight. It is, I enjoy this fight, I'm going to live for this fight. I would never go into a boss fight like with the intent of, you know, blowing past it. I would enjoy every second of it, and I think that's the beauty of that game.
I mean, I don't know. The whole like D&D is pretty much. It's funny. D&D is the kind of the only progression game that I really play, for like story-oriented games right now because it's just a big time commitment. I only have time for one thing at a time for in terms of a long-term commitment with games. I think the way I like here, it's kind of coming into like the DM inspiration of what you take from to implement your campaigns. Of course, you have a lot of anime. I have a lot of music, right? We actually talked about this yesterday, last
Yes.
night. All the music that goes into like formulating, you know, your story. If you listen to a bunch of different music, you might have a different vibe that goes in. Like if you listen to a bunch of rage, like doom style music, you're gonna have a crazy hell slayer, like immune, immortal, badass party that will kill anyone and everyone to get their goal because that's what they do. But if you listen to these more like, again, I showed you that song Bremen, it's much more of a like flowing
Adventure.
river of information and plot points and knowledge and story. I take a lot from music when I'm DMing.
I think
And
that's a
I
great
think
way to be.
you should too.
I should.
'Cause-
I really should take more from the music. I've taken a lot from games I've played and media I've consumed. I have not taken enough from music. And I think the one of the few campaigns that I did DM that I took mostly from music, I feel like the NPCs felt a lot more lively to me.
Mhm.
And this is my To Kill a Fae campaign, which not only the music is based off of Studio Ghibli, but also the characters and the way the world acts and works together. It's very Studio Ghibli in the way that I don't fully explain things to you. I'll explain the room, I'll explain the effects on the room, and I'll show a character walking in. But I don't exposit anything more than that. I don't go, this character is 3,000 years old, and, I'll just say something like, they have a very wrinkled face, and, their expression looks solemn, yet they're surrounded by riches and gold. Yet they live alone in an empty castle. So you can
That's
form
the
your own
good way of
opinion.
designing an NPC. Is you want an NPC interesting enough for your player to ask questions to them or about them.
Right.
If you tell your player everything that they want to know, like, oh yeah, meet Old Man Jenkins. He's 3,000 years old. He's a warcaster, and yeah, he's here to do this specific job. They don't have to ask any more questions. You
They don't
just
gotta
told
get
them his
invested.
purpose, his life story, his friggin' motivations. It's over. That NPC's growth is shot.
Just
You
done.
want your player to ask questions, kind of like how Lefty was supposed to be this, total asshole that we were supposed to end up fighting, right? Is that a thing?
Yeah, that was originally the
'cause
plan. He was supposed to be
left-handed Ronin.
just complete asshole. Kind of one of those guys that you see and you're like, alright, we're not supposed to fight him yet, but when we do fight him, it's gonna be fucking hard.
Mhm.
But
And then we start asking questions, developing, and then the story around Lefty and how he interacted with us is much deeper, and he's a quintessential part of the campaign now because of what we did interacting with him,
exactly.
how we grew alongside him, which is cool because it's like a DM is playing his own party as well of NPCs that like, oh, now they're getting attached, so I can actually I'm gonna develop this and see how they react to it.
Right.
It's really, really cool.
The other
having
thing I'd
that
like to
freedom as a
mention
DM.
with NPCs and that, I would say my favorite mysterious NPC that I've wrote of all time is someone called the Elk. And I don't know if I've ever shown you this, I don't know if I've ever told you about this one. This character is pretty much just mood swings incarnate. He is this giant, 7 foot tall, 8 foot tall, deer head, giant green robe. Just looks like what a Wendigo should look like if it had full skin and looked regal. And the party comes across him at night in a mansion in the woods in the Feywild that they thought was abandoned, only manned by one person, which was Wicker, which is a wooden warforged, touched by the Fey. He upkept the castle. And he gave him this whole thing about, the master hasn't been here in over 100 years. And then they come back, and he turns around and he goes, you can't come in yet. The master's here. Come back with a gift. Just pick anything up. And I remember one of the party members, being an asshole, went, I'm gonna pick up dirt and see what happens. Because they're at this point in the campaign where it's near the end, they think they can beat everything. So he picks up dirt, puts it in a jar, and continues walking. And what ends up happening is they give him this dirt, and he takes it in his hands and he goes,
Dirt. I love it. It's so nice. Oh, I can use this. It's so pretty. Take a look at it.
and then as he's showing it to them, he goes,
Take a look at it. Stay away. You're going to steal it.
and then he has another mood swing where he's like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. He started crying.
Unhinged.
He's completely all over the place. His mind is scattered completely. And you can see his power through, the reverberations in the castle. And it's such an interesting character to me because they never really got to fully interact with him either. Because I remember near the end of their interaction, they said something to piss him off. I forget what it was. We'll have to ask Mel in the future, but they said something to piss him off, and he like turned and he flipped a switch, and he was like, "All right, get out." And then they burned his special book, and that's where he
no.
really went nuts. And then he went full Wendigo. Now, mind you, daybreak is coming. The special caveat about this character was, you know how a werewolf at night turns into the wolf, right?
Yeah.
It's during the day that he turns into the Wendigo.
Oh.
So it flipped that on its head. Like,
So
you're
flip.
encountering him at night, you think that's the worst he can get. It's during the day. And he's just... skin peels back. The skull is exposed. It was a very body horror type situation. And they cast, like, Wall of Flames. Before that, I know my players very well most of the time. And I was like, maybe if they come back, you know, he's talking about reading his book, and he's like,
There's a prophecy. You will burn down my castle.
and they started the Wall of Flames. And Mel, I think, was the one to make the comment. It's either Mel or Carolyn, which is another one of the players I had in that campaign, which made the comment, "Oh shit. We just were starting to burn his house down." And I'm narrating as the house is like burning down. They're running from this thing. They get to the gates and they see the giant crystal orb in the center drop and shatter. And before a boss fight can start, his hand freezes and he just collapses. And they have no explanation of why, or no explanation of how, or even what went on. You know, it's just... there's so much to ask about him, and they never got to ask it, and I think that's why he's one of my favorites. Because they're still asking questions about it to this day in their heads.
Characters like that, again, kind of like the trickster god, who's still stuck in, like, he's living rent-free in my head. But just... I don't know everything about this guy, and he seems like he has so much more that he could tell me, but he refuses not to, actively refuses not to. It's scary. It's scary. Like, oh
Absolutely.
man. Yeah, if I don't know, he seems chill, but if I say the wrong, like, maybe he could snap my neck at any given moment, or he could tell me exactly what's gonna happen in my future and terrify the living daylights out of me.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. I want to talk about one thing: designing monsters.
Yes.
Right? We haven't really fought monsters in this campaign.
Mm.
We fought. That's another thing. A kind of a DM tip to you
Really?
is sometimes you don't need to have dialogue,
Right.
because we have a lot of
Back
I would
and
say-
forth?
I would say in this whoa, in this campaign, we've only talked and fought with sentient creatures.
Mm.
Right? Shatter Kai, we've been able to interact with them. They make these weird noises, but stuff that just you can't communicate to.
Mm.
Like, again, I'll take from Estrella, the first legendary quest I ever ran with Daddlin. You weren't there.
No, I wasn't.
I'm sure you heard a lot about it though, right?
I did. I heard
the
everything about
church.
it.
Yeah. The black church.
Mhm.
So I had my players go into, they were hunting for a legendary item. I think it was I forgot what it was. I think it might have been a cloak. It was a cloak that was extremely busted. And they went into this church, like a different dimension. They stepped into like a wormhole, and it was this church that existed in its own separate pocket dimension, completely dark except for some candles. And when they got to the altar, like, candles blew out. They could see things moving in the darkness. When one of the players shot flame into the air, they could see hundreds of scattering, like, white humanoid monsters. And that's the visual, like, environmental storytelling that I think this campaign kind of lacks a little.
Okay.
We don't need to talk to somebody a player doesn't need to talk to somebody in order to gain information. They should be able to not investigate, but just visualize environment or see something. They can't talk to it. Like again, at the end of it, there was this huge pale like SCP-096 type Russian sleep experiment looking character. They didn't talk to it. They tried. They couldn't because it was just hellbent on doing what it does best, which was killing. I think we're missing that. We're missing the monster part of it.
Okay.
We have a lot of demons, devils, crazy like monstrosities, but we're missing the true monster part of D&D where you don't communicate with them because there's no point. They don't understand you.
Right.
They're gonna kill you. They're hostile.
I think
So
that is a very
more
valid
eldritch
point.
horrors.
Oh, don't worry, there will be more of those. I think you missed a major one of those too, which kind of sucked because that was one of the ones that I will give an example of. Mel and Alcoy will know what I'm talking about, but the Blood Valley Guardian, he didn't talk, didn't say anything, just charged and just swung. I think that's probably the
stuff
best
like that.
example. And
But again, it's humanoid, right? It's kind of
true.
humanoid. Built up
So
of all
something
souls.
very
Something truly scary.
Ah,
Not human.
I see.
A monster. Because I mean, in Ravi's backstory, he grew up in the mountains
Rubia
where
fighting monsters.
when he was fighting monsters. He was a monster hunter. I'm missing a lot of that. That's like the one out of all the great things, the one disappointment I have with the campaign right now is that we haven't fought anything monster-like. The closest we've gotten is the Shatterkai, which is still humanoid in nature.
Right.
Want to fight something scary, man. Want to fight like a friggin' werewolf or...
See, it's funny you mention that because I don't want to spoil too much, but in the upcoming arcs, the spirit world will definitely play a more significant role. Like I messaged all of you your each individual abilities. Jude will be definitely interacting with the spirit world much, much more. And that's going to be a very interesting sort of thing because you will be able to help with that. And the spirit world, the spirits are less humanoid when you get up there. Like you get the gods, which are humanoid, but then you get like right below the gods, like in the in-between of like human and god, they're the middle spirits. Those aren't really humans. Some of them can be reasoned with in a sense of like Heibai from Avatar, but others just...
That's what I was gonna say. You have to take a lot of... I kind of view the spirit world as that spirit world from Avatar, The Last Airbender, of just a place that truly can't be explained, and there's a lot of things there that's very, very non-human. I'm just missing that. I want to have that like shock moment of like, what is this thing? Right? Like if we were in the ocean, it was still an impactful moment when we talked with the water Ryu, right? When we fell off of the Suzume Castle and we got teleported. I think for me it would be much scarier and much more of an impactful moment if we just saw this thing lurking in the shadow and then it didn't say anything to us. Right? It was just this creature that we would have no chance of interacting with if we weren't in the right place at the right time.
Right.
Something just truly horrific. I'm missing a lot of that horror.
Fair enough. I like that though. I like that you bring that up because I know it's going to be an empty promise because you have to wait a few months to figure it out, but there will be stuff like that where it is going to give you that feel that I'm prepping and planning, and do not worry, I have it all in the back of my head.
All in the noggin. It's all ready to go.
It's rearing, but you have to go to the right place,
Yeah.
That's the thing. Because certain areas are very towny, and spirits don't normally try to reside in towns. Residing in certain forests, though.
Yeah. That's another thing, too, is we visited pretty much all the towns at this point, all the towns of like major significance to the story, start bringing us off the trail, something that's not on the map. We've been working off maps this whole time. Maybe be like, well, like you circle a part of the map that's not Yumaga, like that's not a marked place, and be like, well, actually, there's something interesting over here. Somebody tells you, and then it's like a destroyed temple or something. History, like locations lost to history or overgrown, taken over by the environment, this forest, mountains. Like we can come across statues of old gods, right? And then this leads us on an arc of finding out what the gods were, what they represented. A lot of, again, what is kind of missing is the environmental storytelling.
Right.
It's still an immersive world, don't get me wrong, because we have so much to work off of and so much written lore. But something we don't know. Something that's like, well, this isn't written down. I have
Something
no
that you have
reference
to
of this.
dig for, pretty much.
Yeah, literally dig for. Like, I want to see that stuff buried in the dirt so that only the head is popping up, and then I reveal this six-armed statue of like some primordial evil that was lost to time.
I
More
can
of
think
the
of a few
occult.
things like that. Definitely.
Yeah, I love the occult, like that part of the that part of D&D of something that's worshipped, like an evil god that's worshipped. Something that we have, like, not to we can't defeat them in combat, but we can defeat their followers or something. I'm
You
just
can
kind of
sort
delving
of-
into what I do as a DM is just scary. It's got to be scary because if your players, there's a lot of ways to get your players immersed, but one of my favorite ones is to get them scared.
Fear is definitely a great motivator. I will give it that. Let me just.
Hello?
Hmm?
Did you get cut off?
Me? Oh, Jude.
Yeah, I thought you started saying something.
Sorry, no, I was altering something quickly. But no, fear is definitely a great motivator for your players, and also a great sort of way to actually give them something. Because I can drop a stat block in front of you, and it's just gonna be. Which is why the Tarrasque has definitely changed, in my opinion. At least from a player perspective when I face something like it. If I know what I'm fighting, and it's like, oh, it's a Tarrasque. Like, yeah, my character is now a pile of hit points against another pile of hit points. It's not scary. However, if you describe a giant creature emerging from the mountains, as you see its teeth come up, something you thought to be a small hill, maybe, uprooting trees as it stands to full height, with mountains on its back, as it stares down at you. That would scare the shit out of me. I would piss my pants right there. I think the other thing is my thalassophobia definitely comes through when I play underwater. Like, if I hear something like, oh yes, you see something lurking in the shadows underneath you, it's like, alright, fuck this, I'm out. Nope. I'm like, this is no good. I don't like this. Which is also another small thing that, I know we haven't encountered it that much because I try my best to stay away from it. But the good thing is nobody really harps on it after I say it. I don't have snakes in my campaign.
You don't like snakes?
I am deathly afraid of snakes to the point where I can't look at pictures or I will physically break down. And it's one of those things that I always ask my players to respect before I even start. I don't run UONT characters. I don't allow... That's the only banned race. Unless you reflavor it to be human, there are no UONTs, there are no snake familiars, there's no snake transformation. If you wild shape into a snake, you will not. It doesn't work. No snakes. That is my one rule. That is the one hard no that you cannot work around with me. And I'm sorry to be that way, but that is... I can't handle it. They're just... It's something that's in the deep reaches of my mind. I can't explain it.
It's a DM, I don't have those types of things. I mean, I don't have really any phobia type deals. I was gonna say one thing, but I totally forgot, and that was a really good point. No. It was when
Aw.
we were mentioning thalassophobia or some shit. No. The God, dude. Now I'm forgetting. Now I'm blanking out, and I'm really disappointed because I wanted to talk about it.
What,
Uh,
lurking? Try and track your memory. Lurking in the deep.
Yeah.
You know, seeing things move. Something
Yes.
you can't.
Okay. Here it is. Um, DM tips, pro tips. I offer Vito a lot of DM pro tips a lot. The way you can write scary dialogue, you can write scary characters, but your delivery makes or breaks them. Right? I tend to notice you use a lot of the mysterious voice, you know, which is great. It works really well for a lot of the characters, but sometimes if you want to build a scary encounter, you can deliver the lines in a much more monotonous tone, or you can deliver them in a different way, much more not casual but explanative sort of way instead of a mysterious way.
Mm.
Okay, a lot of your NPCs have that tone, or a lot of your explanations have that tone of like the moonlight or something like that. If you want to build, like for example, the Black Church, right? When I was explaining it, I wasn't like, as you look into the forest, or as you look into the church and the blackness, the void envelops you. I was kind of explaining like, okay, so for example, Dadalin, one of the players, he was like, yeah, I'm gonna blast fire into the middle of the cathedral. I was like, okay, so as you blast fire into the middle of the cathedral, you immediately see tons of hands start moving out of the way. Explaining it in that sort of sense gives off a much more, in my opinion, my experience, much more impactful delivery than just being super mysterious about it.
Okay. So being
Because
very transparent sounding.
it takes some time to learn. You really need to experience it to be able to apply it. I can't just tell you these things.
Right.
It really is all about, trial and error. But again, through trial and error, I found out that if I want to scare a player, I'm gonna make it seem like that's what you're seeing. I'm not gonna add any flavor to it. That is what you're seeing.
Mm.
I'm not trying to, it's a scary thing, but I don't want to overplay. A lot of your stuff is overplayed for, the
Dramatic
theatrics,
effect.
which is good.
Yes.
It's dramatic, but not everything needs to be dramatic, especially if you want it to be scary.
Right.
It needs to be the bump in the night, unsure of what it is.
Mm.
And then
I like that.
that's the points kind of where I cut music, or I cut it to like white noise, and I just let the players take it. I don't explain anything unless they want it to be explained. Like when I threw them into the church, I'm gonna use the church a lot when I'm discussing DM stuff, because I think that is one of my masterpieces, and I wish you were there to experience it. But it was
I wish I
recorded,
was
but it
too,
wasn't.
honestly.
So I threw them in. I explained what they were doing. I explained what the surroundings looked like. I took my hands off it until they wanted me to do something.
Mm. Okay.
So they started talking to each other like, okay, what's going on here? It seems like, I can't see anything besides these lights. Let's move up. Like, okay, you move up, and there is an altar standing in the middle of the church. And there's a few candles on it, and you hear something muffling inside of the crate. See how that delivery comes out instead of you hear something muffled inside of the crate. See, that's much more dramatic. It works for certain scenarios, but when I deliver it, like, there's a lot of candles in the cathedral, or on the center altar, and then you hear something muffled inside the crate. That delivery of like, oh, it's not a big deal. It's like, whoa, it is a big deal because there's something inside. Like, what are you not telling us?
Right.
that sort of
unfeelingness to your players. Like, I don't mean to sound rude, but I feel like it comes across as you have no emotion and no care for what they do. Not in the sense of like, I don't care what happens to my players, but I'm willing to kill you in that way. Like, just, if it happens, it happens type thing, which really puts me on edge, because as a player, it'd be like, okay, well, if my DM cares about me, he's not going to kill my character. If it's like, oh, I don't give a shit what happens to you, it's like,
it's a masterclass on emphasis, right? When you emphasize something, it causes the players to focus in on it. Again, kind of like when you want to not railroad, but point your party in the right direction, point your players in the right direction of like, kind of what Brennan Lee Mulligan said once is like, Oh, you walk into a room, you see some books on a shelf, some chalices on a like empty chalices on a table, and in the corner lies like a door, right? Immediately, their focus is going to be, okay, well, he's emphasizing the door. Probably something behind that door. Everything else doesn't really matter. When you drop information like that, it kind of teaches your players to listen for that emphasis. So, like, okay, now I got to turn on my brain and focus on that detail instead of all of the background. When you explain something like, again, you walk to the altar in the middle, a lot of candles on it, again, similar to your surroundings. The illumination from the candles and the candelabras is just the only light source that is in your vicinity. You walk up to the altar and you see there's a red cloth on the top, and inside there's something muffled banging on the outside of the altar. They're kind of listening on, like, okay, yeah, there's something on there. There's candles. There's a red cloth on it. There's something banging inside. Wait,
Banging.
something banging inside? And then I'll just emphasize, yeah, there's something banging inside.
Right.
It's like pure monotonous delivery and pure absence of that mysterious or like any emotional tone truly gives that sense of uncertainty, because you can dramatize uncertainty with that mysterious, the very noir voice, but having that absence of emotion really gives it the sense of, I don't know what that is. Again, like, imagine if I was delivering that same line and something good was inside of the like, Vito, do you know what was inside of the altar or no?
No, I do not.
Okay, so I'll give you a few lines as a DM, and I'll tell you, you give me the vibe that, you tell me the vibe that you're getting or what you would do, right? So you walk up to the altar, and there's all these candles on top of the altar. There's a beautiful red cloth, kind of similar to how the Catholic Church runs things, where there's this cloth, they keep the book on top, but in this case, there's just candles. There's something banging on the inside. What is that kind of vibe? Like, what is that?
It connotates evil things. Yes, I would say so.
Mm-hmm. See, and then what if I deliver it like, there's some candles on the top, there's a red cloth, and there's something banging on the inside.
Makes me a bit more curious to see what that is.
It's curiosity, right? It's like an inquisitive tone instead of a danger tone. It incites curiosity. It could be dangerous.
Could be.
Everything poses a danger in this world, but
you almost sound surprised that it's in there yourself.
Yeah. See, it's a surprise tone of like, okay, well, there's something banging inside. I gotta check out what it is.
Yeah, like.
Right? And then that tone of, so there's some candles on the top. There's a beautiful red cloth, and there's something banging inside.
I have no idea. I have no fucking clue.
It could be good, it could be bad. And what the players ended up doing when I delivered it to a completely neutral tone is they burned the altar. And I told them after the campaign, when you burn the altar, like, what was in that altar anyway? We never found out. It's like, oh, inside the altar was the priest of the church who was going to tell you that there was something in the darkness, but you ended up burning it. Like, that totally neutral tone really is true uncertainty, because even the DM doesn't give you a hint.
Right. I think that's another level of don't speak to your players and like don't meta DM that I'm still trying to grasp.
Meta DMing goes much more than just straight up telling your players things. It goes into your tone.
Which is something I'm definitely going to be working on.
So it's, again, like that. Like,
yeah.
And then, again, environmental storytelling. When they burned the altar, they could hear screaming, like blood-curdling screams from the inside. And they're like, okay, we definitely did something good.
And you just said, like, you hear blood-curdling screams from the inside.
Yeah, and a blood-curdling, like, as soon as you burn the altar, a blood-curdling scream comes out and echoes throughout the entire church. And, wow.
It's like, wow, we did something right. We did it good.
Like, we did something. Okay, and I assume it was good. And then immediately after, like, no, you kind of killed off your, your help. And in terms of, like, vital information, right? We discussed in the last Tavern talk, there was my vampire castle. When the player didn't meet the big bad guy. You can still tell that part of your story. You can still give them vital information. Like if they didn't burn the altar and they let the guy out, the guy would tell them, there's something in the darkness. You need to stay in the light or else it's gonna get you. Right?
Yeah.
That, okay, immediate information from the horse's mouth. There's something in the darkness. It's gonna kill me if I go out of it. Stay in the light. Right? They killed the dude. They burned the altar. So how am I gonna give that information to the player? Oh, well, they burned it. There's light. They caused more light to be, they caused
Shown
more
and
light to
they
be activated by
see.
burning it. So as soon as they burned the altar and all this light got washed throughout the walls of the church, they had that same information drop of like hands and feet and long legs just start moving out of the darkness, trying to escape into the darkness from that flame that you just put out. It's the same delivery, or it's the same information being delivered. It's just a different delivery because it wasn't from an
NPC.
words. It wasn't words. It's environmental. So again, you can always give your players the information you want them. You just have to work it. You have to sew it into what they do.
Right. Okay.
So that's another thing. It doesn't always have to be told. It can just be implied.
All right.
And they picked up right away. They started breaking like chairs and using them as torches and throwing them into the darkness, so they could kind of like Indiana Jones, trigger warning, Vito. Indiana Jones snake pit.
know.
Yeah. Where they have to
Hate
throw
that scene
torches
so
and have
much.
snakes kind of
Just,
get out of there so they could walk. Same thing. It's all environmental storytelling, which is incredibly important as you get better as a DM. And forming, which is arguably the hardest scene to form, is fear. Scaring your players
Right.
is one of the hardest things you can do.
Right.
True scaring.
I think the only time that I think I pulled that off somewhat is the first encounter Jude had with Father Red Eye, maybe. Where like I
Yeah,
narrated
see?
her like getting up in the bed and it's like Rafi's sitting there and Rafi's just sitting there. He's turned over and you turn him over and you see the face.
No, I gotta talk on this. If you watch back, you did exactly what I just said, where you kind of went monotonous with your tone. And you were just explaining things as they happened in Jude's eyes. You don't go, and Rafi's eyes go blood red, and blood starts dripping out of his eyelids. You just go, you turn to see Rafi sitting next to you, and as soon as you see Rafi and he starts speaking to you, blood just starts pouring out of his eyes. See that deadpan delivery is so much scarier. It's so much more impactful. Like I was freaking out and I wasn't even there. I was just like I was listening, kind of like doing like checking my sheet, and then I hear, and Rafi's eyes go blood. Huh? What's going on? Why are you doing that? I got scared, dude. That's the effectiveness of it.
Okay.
I'm telling you, go watch it back. You'll see.
I need to. I think we were recording that because that's Suzume Castle.
Yeah. That's how you do it. That's how you scare a player. You gotta let them get scared. You don't scare them. You gotta let them get scared by what you put out.
Right. Okay. So definitely working more with that. It's definitely a better
Delivery. Cannot stress it enough.
All right. So that's a DM technique. Should have like that little segment, just DM technique of the night.
Oh yeah, dude. This is a little section that we got. Just
Little
DM pro tips with Adrian.
Speaking of DMing though, in the world of Yumigawa, and this is something that will affect a decision I make in the future, not for this campaign, but in a future one. Would you rather go to the past and see like the forming of Amosa and like all the older like Age of Blossom, or would you want like a future of Yumigawa, like cyberpunk like campaign? Which one would be of more interest to you in this world? Because both are viable.
What?
Like new
I
characters,
assume you already
new
have
campaign.
a plan for.
I have a plan for
new
both.
Campaign?
New campaign completely, like one shots pretty much. Like just to
think
explore
future.
it.
I think future.
I was gonna say the same thing. Because I was toying with the old concept where it's like, oh, you can go to the past and see how everything is formed, and it's really just the way that campaign would run, in my opinion. It's all been done. The sins cannot be killed. There are NPCs that can't be killed because then they wouldn't show up in Yumagawa for your campaign, so they would have some sort of plot immunity, so you would know how things played out. However,
See, that's the difficulty of a past, right?
that's the
You
thing.
need to
With the
you need
future,
to have with the future, everything's uncertain.
everything is very uncertain. Like, we could have like a major like city like that looks like cyberpunk or something futuristic, and then you have the spirits roaming through somehow, or like the spirit world interacting. Very
Dimension
like
20 Unsleepy City type, where the two worlds collide.
yes, very very much that way. And then you can also see like the effects of what your characters did. Maybe you could even see people who maybe over time found artifacts of the sins and started worshipping them as gods. And maybe you don't have a sinner as your boss, but maybe you have someone who augmented themselves cybernetically to be more like one of the sins. Something like that. Where like
What I would
Sloth
say
could be
on
someone
that-
hacking into someone's head.
Yeah, what I would say on that is, again, the past is the past. You can't do anything about it. It's
Right.
From a player's perspective, I would say it's like this. If you played a past campaign for Yumagawa, it would be like if we found out something about a character, it'd be like, oh, okay, so that's what he did. That's what he looks like in his prime. But it's much cooler to me to go to the future and be like, oh, so that's how we ended up.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's much more of like a wow instead of a oh.
There's definitely ways that it could play out more interestingly and definitely give different takes on things. So I
You
feel
can
like
do a lot more because you can destroy things.
you can fuck shit up in the future, which
No, as a DM too, you could like imagine
Oh,
like
yeah.
again, the way I would play it in my head, I would run it because Yumagawa kind of takes place, or the whole Fleeing Sparrows campaign kind of takes place in a world where it's like feudal Japan.
Mm-hmm.
I would take it to a point where it's like the early 1900s, where
Ooh,
there's
okay.
cars, right? Horses are getting phased out. Cars are
Mm.
coming in, like trains. You
Mm.
know what I mean? Instead of from moving from caravans to trains, horses to cars and motorbikes, bows and arrows to like primitive like revolvers and stuff. Swords are still there, of course, but taking that and running it with it, so it's still a little old. So you still can't just mow down a crew, with your freaking light machine gun.
AK-47, yeah.
Yeah, but it's still a grounded boots in the ground type combat.
Mm.
But yeah, and then again with the whole future thing, if we were to go back to almost in its prime, right? You could see the fall of it. That's cool. You could see the building of Rice City, but it's gonna be there at the end. You don't really care about how it's gonna grow up because you know how it looks like in the end.
Yeah.
It could be interesting, but imagine like a future Yumagawa where the Battle of Rice City, where the entire like half the country gets obliterated, right?
Yeah.
It's so much cooler to see like, well, our heroes did something, but again, they were just legends. There's something so much bigger than them now in our
Right.
day.
Right.
It's a lot cooler. It's a lot.
I would
cooler
say
in my
so.
opinion.
See,
what
the
I like
reason
to
I
do is,
want to
like, if I
play
wanna
off.
run,
Oh, sorry, you first.
that's if I'm gonna run a campaign in the same world. Like I kind of suggested you like bring back the past of Estrella, right, with the clovers. I kind of phased out of it because I was like, well, if they're gonna play it like that, I already know how the story's gonna go. It's kind of weird to, retcon things. In the future, there's so much more you could do. So
I
much more you
agree.
can do.
I
You were
definitely
gonna say
agree.
something?
I was gonna say the reason I wanted to run something more future like cybernetics and stuff like that is also to warrant a sort of system change, because we're using regular 5e, right? I found this RPG that's called Legend of the Five Rings. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it is very much like the duels in that are how the duels are supposed to play out here. They're supposed to be less, like multiple rounds of like slash slash slash, and very much like stand there, stare down your opponent. There's like resolve and like steel your will and like stuff like that. And pretty much a duel can be decided in one strike, which is how most samurai duels go. Which is why it sucks for you guys when you have to sit there and be like, alright, why the hell did I lose the duel if you only hit me once for 18 damage and I have 93 hit points? It's like,
Yeah.
that's just, it's a duel, it's one strike, so that's why certain duels, it's like, it's a one strike duel, and I'll tell you, it's gonna be either you save or suck here, and you're gonna either win or lose in one strike. So with that, there's more mechanics behind it. Like, you can stare down your opponent, shake their resolve, make their swing a little less, on point.
Like Wild West, kind of like,
Very, yes.
get
Like
your
draw,
moxie
bang,
up,
done.
and then, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
much cooler.
Which, I mean, I might not switch over to the system entirely. I might take bits and pieces like I normally do and integrate it into 5e. But even then, it's stuff like that. But for a very futuristic thing, my thing is, I don't like that transition period. I don't like the Wild West as a concept. Like,
I
not,
love the Wild West. I don't know what
I
you're talking
like
about.
the Wild
buddy boy.
West, but I don't like the technology of the time. Like, I will run something that acts and feels like the Wild West, but with different tech. It's just, it's
Me?
not
No,
my...
dude, I would love to run a Wild West campaign.
I'm
It's just
either
so cool
so
to me.
far in the future where you can teleport places, or I'm so far in the past where guns barely exist. Those
Or
are
don't
my
exist at
two.
all.
Those are my two ends of the
I've
spectrum.
noticed that.
I hate the like middle periods of like the 1900s to like the early 2000s where it's like, yeah, our guns don't shoot energy lasers. It's like, why? Why can't they shoot energy lasers? Why do I have to deal with steel projectiles?
You know what's funny though? I love campaigns where it's like all, classic D&D, but one character just has a gun. Right? So it's like, I draw my +2, my +2 longsword of, fallen, like my fallen star metal blade, and then your other player just goes, I'm gonna pull out my
My Glock.
gun.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pull out my gun.
And shoot him.
Shoot.
And
it's
it's
like
like,
this epic
well,
duel in the back, and then just go, all right. Well,
it's
how
the
much do I hit him
Indiana
for?
Jones effect of like,
yeah,
he pulls out
yeah.
the sword
The
and is like
comedic
swinging it
effect.
around.
And then it's,
And then
like,
it's like-
he does this flourish and gets in his guard, and then players goes, all right, well, I'm gonna draw my
I'm gonna
revolver.
pull out my gun and I'm gonna shoot him. Oh, how much damage do you do? It's a real gun. It kills him.
Yeah, I hit a vital point and he's out.
He's just dead. He's just dead now. It's like,
The thing
oh.
about the Wild West for me is it's got to be a D&D style Wild West.
Mhm.
So imagine if you phase all the spells and stuff into a world with guns. Early guns, right? So for example, I take the Wild West and the whole like way I would do it, soothsayers, right? I think Jude's character would go really well in a Wild West campaign because she could still envelop herself in the whole fortune-telling, traveling caravan type. But now she's, instead of viewing, like, there still be gods and stuff, but they're more ethereal. They're a lot less involved. They're more of like a, eye in the sky type thing.
Right.
Instead, you're interacting with the fallen spirits of like, Dandy Jones, the Wild West most dangerous gunslinger outlaw or something. It'd be so much cooler to run like that.
See, if I would run it like that, I would run it in a way where it's more, like spells fit in the guns. Like you can use your 6-shooter and you can load certain spells into that 6-shooter. That's a magic item I would give out to anyone that is a gunslinger. You can't get like level 9, like Wish. You just shoot someone with that. But something minor like magic missile, you could definitely just pow, 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 pow.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about like transitional times and technology, industrial revolution type things. You're trying to run them in D&D. It's still gotta work in your system. It's still gotta be able to play it out like D&D, right?
Right.
Cover gets a lot more important with guns. Range as well, proficiencies, different types of ammo, right?
It's true.
The way I thought guns could be is they're just another projectile weapon to me, where if you're too close, then they have a disadvantage. Pistols don't have that thing, or like long range rifles and stuff. But a sword can keep up with a gun just as well, as long as they're in the right range.
Right.
Spells as well, physical projectiles, right, get stopped by magic,
Right.
right? Or it could be the opposite, where physical projectiles go straight through magic, right?
Mm,
But they're still incredibly vulnerable to physical attacks.
right. So
It has to be it has to be balanced in some type of way.
in some way, yes. Because you can't
I
just
still
have
love Wild West though.
that. The Wild West is an interesting. The way it plays out is interesting to me. But I feel like in the Wild West, maybe the way I would run it, again, like the samurai campaign, you're losing the monster aspect, in my opinion. But you can also bring that back in ways that, like, with effort.
I don't think so. I don't think you lose anything.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, again, that's kind of our biases. Where I love the Wild West and I think it could work. And you don't like the Wild West. And you don't think it
I'm
would.
very much not a Wild West person. Which,
The way I like to explain it, this is like kind of our debate scene where it's like,
oh yeah, no, it's a very
Um,
like interesting concept.
I like to think of it this way: old world, new tech. That's what a transitional period is. It's just you're just throwing in some spice,
Right.
throwing in this new item.
Right. I like
Um,
that.
So, imagine, right? A hunting party goes out, like an Oni hunt, right? But instead of the Rai having swords, now they have some revolvers, right? That shoot
Muskets
magic,
and
like
stuff.
yeah. Instead of having this, instead of having like only swords, right? They could have a pistol, right, on their side. So if they, that's the thing also that I like about the Wild West is that there's no quick reloads. You can't just reload your gun in a turn, or you can't just reload your gun as a bonus action. It takes a full action to reload because you have to powder, shot, ram, rod. That's what I like about the Wild West. It still fits with D&D because there's a lot of sacrifice to having that instant damage, that range with a pistol, or that
Right.
range with a weapon, like a gun. It still fits for me. That's why like modern ages kind of don't vibe with me as much unless you're just not tracking ammo. I like to track ammo in terms of my campaigns. Just makes you think a little bit more about how you use your weapon.
Right.
But like as soon as you run dry on your pistol, right? Like again, an Oni hunt, the Rai open up with their pistols, try and get some things in. Maybe they have magic, like they have magic in their pistols, like holding spells, right? Hold person spells. So if you get hit, you get held in place for a turn.
Right.
As soon as they're dry on those pistols, they run in with swords. So it gets, you have this mesh of old and new, but it still works really well because the pistol isn't so much better. It just serves a different role.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I would
It's
say
not a
that's an
straight-up
interesting. I would say that's an interesting way to run that because when you mention that, that's the way I would run my future games. It's all about dressing, in my opinion. I think it's more about the aesthetic than the mechanics for me. Because, like, I could run a game exactly like you're describing, where, like, you'd need to track your ammo and, like, cartridges for your guns are this way. And, stuff like that, where it's more about how we view the world now. Because, in my opinion, I would run the future campaign similar to how you describe that, where it's like they're storing this energy in their guns, and it's, it's like you run out, and now you gotta.
We do kind of lose the fantastical aspect of it.
It is true. You do lose the fantastical, which is speaking to something. Maybe it's just me thinking of a fresh concept that I would want, but there could also be the spirits adapting as well to that kind of world, where it's rather than completely go extinct, there's now a computer spirit, where it's like a spirit that uploaded itself to a computer, and now it like goes through certain mainframes. Maybe there's a smog spirit, because of all the pollution in the air, and it's now
Yeah, they kind of work like the sins, or not the sins, the devils from Chainsaw Man, where as
right.
new technologies come up, as new fears come up, like in Chainsaw Man, new devils come up, as in new spirits. So like, a way I would dress it, right, is like the players are in a server room, and then all of a sudden, boom, 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 sparks, fuse boxes just start flying out and blowing up, and then the tech wizard guy is kind of working there. He's like, it's a virus, and then, for example, if Jude was in that campaign, I kind of use Jude a lot for her spirit sight. She turns on her spirit sight. It's not a virus. It's just dressed up to be a virus. It's actually a spirit messing around. The spirit that's taken over a mainframe because they've adapted. They've,
Right.
found out a new vessel, a new avenue of approach to the physical world.
Exactly.
That's how I would dress new stuff, right? In terms of the Wild West, kind of those transitional periods, again, it is kind of hard to blend in the monster part of it. I look at Red Dead Redemption.
That's
I look
true.
at stuff like that, where they're still there. I mean, Red Dead Redemption, of course, is more focused on human combat, but there's still that
Right.
fantastical element of it. I think it's not as hard as you may think to blend them together. Because again, it's just another avenue of combat. It's not totally OP. You might be able to kill a pig easier or kill a sparrow easier, right? Shoot them out of the air, but these big
Right.
beasts that take hundreds of sword slashes, they'll tank a few bullets. It's a little freaking projectile.
But eventually it will take its toll.
Yeah, eventually it'll take its toll, like as if they were being attacked by a sword or arrows.
Right.
Who's to say arrows are any different than bullets?
That's true. That
in
is a
terms
very
of
true
D&D
fact.
combat. And I think it is cool to like have that that sense of new technology, because the way I look at it, right? Flashlights, torches, lanterns, directional lanterns where you could close the, Fresnel lens and just close the lantern up so you have a beam of light. So instead of having a torch, right, illuminating big wafts of light, you have a torch or like a flashlight that you can boom, beam just sits, and then all of a sudden something scary's out of the way. It's so freaking
Honestly,
so much
that
more
makes a lot of sense. So it's less Star Wars in your opinion, like you view future campaigns less Star Wars and more Legend of Korra type.
Yes, much more Legend of Korra, where it's still,
there we go.
You got the ways of old. They just got a few
It
more
just
toys
got
to work
updated,
with.
Yeah. Which, again, it's definitely interesting in that respect. And you can kind of, at that point, I would but I would take it less Wild West and more like industrialization era Japan, where they're like phasing out the samurai. So now, instead of hunting the Ronin because of dishonor, you're hunting them because their way is old, and they're clinging on to their old way. So it's outlawed to be a samurai.
They won't cooperate with the new world.
Mm-hmm.
That reminds me of a song by Sabaton. It's called Shirayama.
Oh, I gotta listen.
I don't know if you've heard of Sabaton before.
I have not. You gotta send me more of these songs.
It's literally it's a band from Sweden, and they only write songs about historical events, groups, and people. So they have like stuff from World War One is a big one. World War Two, Shirayama is one of my favorites. It's a song about the stand of the 500 samurai at the Shirayama Castle versus the Imperial Japanese Army. So they had a final stand against the army, and they had all their swords, they had arrows, they had some guns, but they were mainly old samurai versus cannons, artillery, guns, tanks, right? They were fighting against that, and it's a super good song, and I like that because it's like they still put up a fight, dude. They're still scary as hell. Which is again going back into D&D, it's like those old ways are still just as there's a reason why they stuck around for so long. Not because technology, is because it damn works, right? And you start phasing magic into it, where it's like, all right, you may have a revolver, but this freaking barrier, right, works specifically against arrows. It's gonna work against bullets, right? Unless you have some sort of magical enchantment, like a magic arrow turns into a magic bullet.
Right.
Of course, there's gonna be some advantages to pistols and stuff, but it's still, still freaking badass. It's still works.
Absolutely.
You're still up against an even fight against the gun and magic.
Right. So it's not completely phasing out the old way. It's more, this new way is good, but there is better.
They're competing.
Exactly.
They're competing.
Advancements in bullets, advancements in magic. There could even be an argument for a plot line about the players making choices between the past and the future. Like, they could help one NPC that wants to make the bullets and the technology better to make, like, machine guns, maybe. Or, like, longer magazines for the guns. Or someone who wants to develop magic more and bring it back more.
Like an artificer school versus a magic school. So I was
Pretty
thinking
much.
this, like, just from what you said. Again, if we go into a future Yumagawa, future Fleeing Sparrows campaign, let's focus on the Marquez clan for a little bit. They win their independence from Yumagawa, but they get hit with the industrialization. Like, oh, look at all this cool new tech. And the Marquez clan is like, okay, well, our way works. We're not going to do that. Just tradition, dog. And then there's this, it's kind of like the Ikurai, and then the Karai and Marquez kind of split off. Now the Marquez clan has a split off little branch that embraces the technology, right? Again,
Right.
it's like, there's so much more you can do with transition technology because it is a changing of times. There's so much more instead of just.
And there's definitely more breathing styles. Think about it. The old way could be forest breathing. The new style could be something closer to iron breathing or plasma breathing, something.
Or swamps or like different
swamp or
environmental
gunpowder, Or even one that I toyed with was I can't think of the name right now, but it'll hit me like a bus. But yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. See, it's that kind of thing. It really depends on A, what we can run, and B, what we want to run. Because I love this idea, and I love it, but I'm still feeling that draw, that pull to like do something cyberpunk. And I'm like, I want it. I don't know why. I don't know.
Cyberpunk is because it offers creativity.
It does. I feel like that it does offer a lot of creativity there, which could also be slightly stifling. Because with all the creativity offered, I need to find a way to mesh the two worlds.
Yeah.
So,
again, like trying to bring Wild West into D&D, it would have to be kind of steampunk.
I would say
Not really
so.
true Wild West.
No.
Now I want to write a freaking Wild West D&D campaign. I think I'll drop, because Kingdom of Heaven I've been working on, but I'll have like another campaign in the holster, no pun intended, a Wild West campaign in the holster, and just have that steampunk-esque vibe of like, prosthetic arms, because they didn't have prosthetic arms back then.
No, they didn't.
They didn't have working prosthetic, like maybe gears and stuff, kind of like
so like the
Araki's armor,
Overwatch
it's very
version of
steampunk.
like Cassidy or something.
Yeah. It's like running kind of like that, where there's magic involved in, what technology can't do, magic can.
Right.
That's another thing about the melding of two worlds.
True.
Technology can only go so far. Magic is
true.
limitless.
Magic is limitless, boundless, and endless. You can raise the dead with magic. With technology, you can only replicate.
Yeah, you can only raise the bodies. You can't raise their sentient. So freaking awesome.
Which gives me another idea for like another spirit, maybe. Like a spirit that was maybe weaker, that liked to inhabit small bodies and weak-willed people, and then it takes over an exoskeleton. So where it's the puppet spirit, we'll call it. It puppets small dead animals because they're weak-willed enough where it can weasel its way into their body and just puppet them around.
Yeah, or like the way they puppet powerful people is like they have to whittle them down.
Exactly.
HP, kind of like Pokemon, where you can't just capture, unless you have a Master Ball, you can't capture a high-level Pokemon.
Exactly.
You have to whittle them down. You have to make sure they're weak so they can't resist that puppeteering.
Which is also why, if you remember the Wrath fight, when she tried to use Tenny, he didn't instantly get his spirit pulled. He's too strong-willed. He's too powerful. He had to be whittled down until then you can take the spirit out.
Yeah, see, then that's how we're discussing it right now. It's the freaking You gotta, lower their HP so you can actually do the work
Exactly.
that's required. Awesome
Yes.
stuff, though.
No, absolutely. Let's see. Anything else you would like to ask? Or talk about in your perspective? Because there's a lot to, like, delve into for this kind of stuff. Alright.
Would you be interested in playing a Wild West steampunk
I
style?
would
run
be
by me?
interested, actually. See, I'm interested in playing any campaign, and this is a disclaimer I'll give you right now. I'm interested in playing any and every campaign presented to me, as long as I can figure out what the world is and figure out a character I want to play. The only issue for me as a DM is I only like running things that I want to run, and then I try to find the players as it be. The problem is, the one time I didn't do that, and I just ran a campaign at a player's request, that was nothing I wanted, but just... I've told you about this campaign before. I have no hard feelings towards the player, I have nothing, but he pretty much turned to me and was like, I want to play X campaign. Make it happen. And I was like, I really don't love the concept. And he was like, okay, then don't run it for me. But then you're not going to have a group. I was like, I want to run it. I want to run it then, because I need another group. And I originally started running it, and I was like, I don't like this. I hated it. Like, I tried to put my own spin on it. I tried to do everything I could, but I did not like where the story was going. I really had no direction. I had no ties to it. And I lost motivation like session 3, and that's when I sent the message to the group. I was like, hey guys, I can't keep doing this. It's really just not a campaign that I would be willing to continue with. I'm so sorry, all this like fanfare. And then I was like, it felt bad for people. Which the funniest part is, in that campaign, I have one of my favorite like brutal fights in there. It was with, what was it? I forgot the name that my friend Clint used. Clint ended up making this sort of like barbarian orc who was like just there for fighting. And it was, they were playing an evil campaign, so they were all the villains. And he kicks down this door to like this blacksmithing shop and like takes out people. And he sends 2 of his goons downstairs to like take care of something, and he doesn't hear back from them. So he walks down there and he finds an armored man, like a little blacksmith boy, like just one like hammer in one hand, axe in the other, and he's just, he's standing over the 2 like unconscious like dead bodies of his allies. And Clint turns around, he's like, I'm gonna hit this guy. And he hits him with his axe. And then this guy kind of swings both his weapons. And Clint, he rolls 2 nat ones. He's like, I want to like knock him out of his hands. And this guy, on the next turn, I was like, you know what? Instead of picking up a new weapon, I'm gonna shift perspective. I'm gonna have him fist brawl with this guy. So I have this guy grapple Clint, pick him up, and run him through the wall, and they both like crash onto the ground, and they're both getting up, they're both bleeding, and he just stands up and he goes, let's go, you stupid motherfucker. And this really spoke to both of us, because we're both on the like boxing team for our school, and we're both the same like style and like philosophy for fighting. We're both infighters. We like to stand inside the pocket and trade and like really just go at it with our opponents. And I gave him that in this thing, and I really let him be brutal with it.
It's like an HP. It's an HP race. It's
Exactly.
like, I'm not gonna dodge anything.
No, absolutely
I'm just gonna
not.
see how much you can take.
It was literally stand there and brawl. And there was a moment in the fight where he like knocked him in the head, and like you saw the light leave his eyes, and then he just bam swings
Just
back.
woke up mid-fall.
And afterwards, you can kind of see one of the guys just like look at him, and he just he like punches him, and he keeps like wailing at him. And then when he falls, like Clint's character like fell or something, and he missed his next strike, completely whiffed it. This guy falls, and he turns him over. He rolls an insight check to see what happened, and he realizes this guy was knocked out for like the second, like for a few rounds of that fight, and he was going purely off of the willpower. And there was this like family that was cheering him on because they were held by the orcs. They were like held there to watch this guy die, and they were cheering him on. He kept getting up and just bam. And I think it was my favorite moment from that campaign, because Clint ends up turning around, looking at this family, looking at this unconscious individual that gave him like the best fight of his life, which is what his character wanted. And he turns around and he turns to his orcs and goes, "Take them to the edge of the village and let them go. Take care of this guy and bring him back when he's stronger." And I loved that. And one of the players did not want that to happen. He was like, "Well, are my legions nearby?" He was trying everything in his power. I was like, no, because I had an owlbear, which thank God I did, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to justify anything. But he had all of his forces focused on this like bottom half of the village, and like in the top right corner, that's where this fight was happening. And they just go. And Clint never mentioned it. He never said anything. And he pretty much just, like, the player knew, but the character didn't. And it's just, if that campaign did continue, he would have come back and he would have been like a reoccurring sort of villain. But I liked the way that he turned around and said, like, "Hey, I know I'm a villain. I know I'm evil. But this guy gave me the best fight of my life, fought beyond where he should have, and I'm a villain. And I'm not a dumb villain. Maybe I'm dumb in book smarts, but I want him to come back stronger. That's my purpose as this villain. I'm not here to, pillage and raid and get rich. I'm here to find the strongest person to fight me and fight them and keep fighting people until I find someone that beats me."
Yeah.
And it's moments like that where I like slightly regret it. Slightly regret ending the campaign.
Oh, okay.
But then it goes back to, I had no direction, no sort of will to run this. And it turned from like, oh, I'm getting up to play D&D, I'm excited, I can't wait to go today, to like, great, this again, I gotta get there, It was just one of those things.
I was gonna say before, we kind of like whizzed right past it.
What?
But in terms of immersion in the campaign, like why you stopped it early, like it's also important to think about yourself as a DM when you're doing this stuff. Because at the end of the day, it is your game.
Right.
If you're not 100% into it, you're not going to give 100% to your players.
No, absolutely not.
That's a responsibility you as a DM take. Gotta be sure you're immersed. You gotta be sure you're excited about the world you want to present. It's typically not an issue because DMs in general, they'd have to put a ton of work into the world they're making. So of course they're going to get attached. But
Right.
if somebody suggests to you, "Hey, run this," and then you're like, okay, I guess.
See, I think
You're
the
gonna
way
give-
that it was run too, like, I'm all for doing an evil campaign and like making it in my own world. And like, if you guys wanted to run a campaign in the future, or maybe even a one shot where like you guys played as the Sins, I'd have no issue. My main issue in that campaign lied in that I didn't make the lore. The player that suggested it to me said it has to be the world of what's it called, Faerun. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, he sat me down, he sent me videos, and he sent me articles. It was like I was doing homework. And I was like, why am I reading so much for a campaign that I'm supposed to know the world in? It's like, I don't love that. But, again, there's no hard feelings towards the player. He did nothing wrong. I think it was just a sort of clash of what we wanted to do. But then again, 2 good things came out of that campaign. Or, well, 3. 1, was the fight I just described. One of my favorite, like,
Slugfest.
brutal slugfests. 2 was the fact that now I know I cannot run campaigns because people request them, and if I don't want to run it, I won't run it anymore. I won't be pressured, And 3, that is the campaign where I met Mel. After playing with her for like 2 sessions, I was like, hey, do you want to join this already running campaign? Like, please, like, I know the players don't know you, but like 2 out of the 4 people that are here, and the other like 4 are like very nice. And granted, she came into the first session, she was like, I don't know if they like me. She was very worried about it. And it took her a bit to warm up, but I think the addition of her made that campaign that much more interesting. And I'm so glad that I did meet her, because this whole thing would not have happened. Because she was also the player that, as weird as it sounds, when I was thinking about ending the evil campaign, she was the person that I was like, turned to, and I was like, I want to end it, but I'd feel bad screwing you guys over. And she's like, no, if you don't want to run it, don't run it. And that was the person that, like, not to say like she's the reason I pulled the trigger, but she's one of the people that made me feel comfortable pulling the trigger on the campaign.
Yeah.
Which I'm very glad about.
Yeah. Man, there's so much, like, that brings me up to lost in time campaigns. Like, when I went back to Australia after so long, I wanted to run the vampires campaign and just lost to the winds. I only ran it for one person for 2 months as a test. And then my freaking, oh man, I had like a similar kind of Wild West, kind of not, just high fantasy but with pistols.
Right.
And then I had one more. It was purely like not heaven, but more like high mountain range, right? So there was this like clan of freaking like wings, like SMRs, angel kind of things. They just have wings, Valkyries, and they couldn't go below the clouds, right? So the entire campaign was focused on these mountains that go above the clouds and fighting in the air. And I never got to run it.
That sounds
so
awesome, though.
Disappointing.
Oh, that sounds
combat,
aerial
cool
combat sounds cool. Speaking of campaigns lost to time, I've mentioned the one that like Meryl was supposed to be like a prelude to, in the form of, what was it called? I forgot the name of the underwater city. It was like an Atlantis ripoff, pretty much. But going back to your point on like going to Estrella and like seeing things completely take a 180 or a complete change, I will say, like, I went back to the server, and no knocks on the server. The server was great. It still is pretty fun when they play, but it's not the same thing when it started, It's not. And that's the thing that I feared when I did start it. I was afraid, because I was like, I'm going to be the only guy DMing, and I'm never going to get to be a player, and I hate this, and I don't want to just be a DM.
Oh, we're very different in that sense.
I grew to the point where it's like, I don't know how to be a player anymore, and I don't always want to. If I'm offered, I will play as a player, but I have so many character concepts that I've come up with that it's like, I can't just pick one. It's very hard. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, now I have to be a DM because I know nothing else. And, nobody else really does DM for me. And the people that do DM for me, are are very busy themselves. So it's like, okay, when do our schedules match up? So it's one of those types of things. the other thing that I will say about people that DM for me, and this is very control freak of me, I like having control of when we meet, as weird as it sounds. I like being the guy to say, like, hey, this is the days and times I'm free to run for you. Pick between them rather than, we're running today, make it or don't. And I'm like, I want to make it, but I can't. And it's, you know?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's up to the DM at that point to kind of make that decision. So, I guess, yeah, that's the thing about being a player is that you don't really have control
No,
over like as much as you would want to be.
absolutely.
I do
And
miss Estrella.
I do
miss it.
slightly miss it. Because there would
If
be
I
like,
wasn't playing this, I would definitely have a comeback.
oh, absolutely, me too. I would have definitely gone back to Estrella and started running quests. And I know, like, I know Dadalin watches our, not streams, but our DM talks now, because he left a comment under the last one. Shout out to
did.
one of the coolest players I've had, by the way. One
Dadlin,
of.
my boy.
I love
still
that man
remember when I absolutely
much.
mogged your ass
Oh
in the
my-
church.
I
Don't forget
loved
it.
that.
It was
Oh
the
my
first time
God.
I ever downed him too.
He was one of the few players that like gave up a lot of autonomy and also like took on willful disadvantage that I've played with. Like I remember I cut off his hand.
Love of the game, man. It's for the love of the game.
Oh my God. I remember I cut off his hand as Dadalin. And I was like, it's not gonna have anything other than like cosmetic effects and you just can't use your left hand. He's like, no. I want disadvantage on my attack rolls. I was like, wait,
It's like, oh, okay, buddy.
yes.
Okay,
I
buddy.
was
If
like,
you want to go
yes.
and run it that way.
Yes. Oh
Yeah.
my God, that was like a
I think-
player that'll do that to themselves, where it's like, you know, you take a handicap and you'll take it on
I
the
lost
chin
an
like a
arm,
champ.
Like
It's
Rafi
like,
lost an arm.
I love that. I love that.
So, again, about Dadalin, right? He's a good example of how to handle strong players.
Right.
He was probably one of the strongest in terms of combat.
Absolutely.
Probably was the strongest because he just had a ton of health, does crazy damage, insane attacks, really good strategy. You kind of have to, when you have those types of things, you can't just be out to get them, right?
Right.
Because you don't want to be like, oh well, I gotta kill him because he's ruining all my campaigns because he's just so strong. You as a DM, you gotta work around that. So
Right.
what I did, right? Again, I've been referencing it so much because again, I think it's one of my best.
It is.
Black Church, where Dadalin went in because he is a buff boy. No,
He's a big
boy.
motherfucker.
Almost like I think 200 something HP, but
Yeah.
he
With like
went in-
resistances.
Mhm. I assume he went in thinking like, all right, if we get into combat, I can hold my own because he has every right to think that. As soon as he realized we were fighting hundreds, right? The way I handled it, every little, all those little humanoid spiderling, pale white spiderling things, they ran on 1 HP piece. So they were like cannon fodder. So
Right.
when he swung into the darkness and did like 80 something damage, right? I was like, okay, let me just roll something real quick for you. And I told him how many he killed, right? And he was like, whoa, oh my God. Because you don't expect that. You don't expect to be like, okay, well, the DM is just going to tell me how much damage I did to one of these things, or maybe I killed a few. It's like, oh yeah, you killed like 82 of them. You see just bodies and legs just fall from the ceiling. Like, oh, wow. And the way you handle these strong players who have such a high HP, at least tactfully, in my opinion, you got to handle them by sheer numbers. Because at some point, these guys do have to take, they do take the hits and they do hurt. So, I wouldn't say a bad DM. A DM who doesn't know how to handle it would kind of build a super buff NPC.
Like Bizarro.
A super buff NPC specifically to counter them, which would be kind of like it would kind of cause some DM player
Versus
struggle.
type thing.
Yeah, versus. But it's like, well, you just built this character just to kill me, and all these DC checks are unfair. You've definitely heard a lot of this.
Yes.
These DC checks are unfair. Why are you doing this? You're just out to get me. You're just mad that I'm strong, right? You just gotta throw something at them that they've never experienced.
Right.
With Dadalin, it was getting swarmed.
Mm.
Where to the point where the attacks you do kill a lot of things, but they just keep coming.
Right.
And you want to stand and fight, you better do it good. But he made the option to run. Smart choice.
Very.
So that's how you handle a player like that. I'm not saying that he was a problem. He definitely wasn't a problem because he was so cooperative. He was such a good player. But
it's more
when
handling
you
the
have
strength.
handle somebody who's so like a level 20, you got to throw something at them that's really good. So a bunch of high levels,
Right.
or just a pure strength in numbers, sheer volume of attacks. That was the first time
Right.
I think he told me that he ever went down. Because he got hit for like 300 damage, and he's like, I'm down. Like you could hear it in his voice, I'm down. This, I don't know what to say. Like this doesn't happen, because it doesn't happen to him.
No. Never.
And then I kind of built it up. So there was a mother of all of those creatures, right, in the darkness. So right, he attacked something at some point. One of the players attacked something. I think it might have been Elmo. They attacked, and instead of they clawed through a few creatures, and they hit something solid, right? And then the solid thing moved away. Like an arm moved out of the swing. So like they hit it, and they're like, ah, dang, I got stuck on something. And then like they start to get like kind of pulled. They're like, oh.
That is horrifying, and I love it.
I think one of my strengths as a DM is putting the player in a situation
That they're not used to.
Not that they're not used to, is that it's just so jarring, right? Because you're used to force-on-force combat, whereas my party of 4 versus your party of 6, I'm going to attack you a certain way, right? The Black Church fight, right? Hundreds of things, and then a mother. Also, you were there, I think, for the Kraken fight.
I was there for part of that, and then I had to leave. What happened there?
Yeah. So y'all went out on the Clover expedition. So the Clovers are like the #1 naval group. They're a big bunch of pirates. You guys went out on a hunt for one of the sunken ships in their fleet. Typically, their ships don't sink. They're the #1 boys in the ocean. If somebody sinks them, they're either a major problem or something catastrophic happened on the ship. So they go out and they find where it's sunk. It's this ship graveyard, right? Where they were, the ship was a clipper ship that was designed with a bunch of freaking huge, heavy hooks and rakes to rake the sand for gold and treasure. So they went out and they were just like kind of scouring the surface, and then they were like, this is where the ship dropped. The deepest part of the graveyard. And all of a sudden, one of the hooks on the sides gets caught on something. I think we got something, boss. They start pulling it in, and then it starts moving. Like this, you can see the string out in the ocean, and instead of pulling it forward, it just starts going like this. And eventually they start fighting a young Kraken. Right? I don't tell them it's a young Kraken. So they're fighting tentacles that are grabbing crewmates, and they have to slash so they have to take care of the ship because the ship has HP. They have to slash the tentacles so it doesn't get pulled into the side.
I was there for that. Yes.
Yeah, the ship gets hit by one of the tentacles, and everybody makes a dex check to not fall off or trying to stay up. And eventually, they fight the Kraken and it starts to escape, right? And the captain of the ship, right? So they end up finding out, it got sunk. That frigate ship is gone because the Kraken got it. And one of the captains at the end of the fight, they just go, we made it. Like, we fought a baby Kraken and lived. And then the players are like, baby Kraken? That thing almost killed us. And they're like, oh, yeah. It was the size of the ship. Yeah, that's about the size of a baby Kraken. It's like, there's this world, again, like, I love doing it. Placing your players in a world like, you're not the biggest fish in the pond, quite literally.
Yeah.
You're in an ocean, and there are big things much, much bigger than you.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, I love
much,
that.
so much fun. Dadlin, if you're watching this, big shout out to you. One of my favorite players coming out of that. You are wonderful, and I hope to offer you, once I start running my own campaigns again, hope to offer you a seat.
Absolutely. I wish I offered him a seat for this, and looking back at it, it's more of, how do I say this? Sort of playing with, not different players, but like a certain set group, and I wanted to step back from Estrella because the only person from Estrella that I really took for this campaign was you. But that's also because I know you IRL, you know?
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to pick one guy from Estrella and then be like, okay, nobody else. Because then people would feel singled out, and it's a whole... I'm done with politics. I'm done with sort of drama. I don't want gossip, garbage, or anything like that. But, you know, I would have definitely enjoyed playing with him again as well. I think this campaign worked out as good as it can right now for the time being, but maybe in a different campaign. Who knows? You know, another time, another place. There are many lifetimes. That's another thing I'd like to mention about the like many lifetimes arc that I have in my campaigns. The like every previous character you've had is connected in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Because they really are in your mind.
You threw me for a loop. dude. Watching it back, dude. As soon as freaking Monona popped up, bro, I was like, couldn't do it. I couldn't handle it.
Oh
I had to
my
like
God.
switch, like actually switch my brain to like back then. It's like I had to. What? Where was I? What was I doing? Who am I? It's like, oh my God, I gotta take a call real quick. Let's take a
take your
quick
time.
break.
Let's take a time out. 1 second, dudes and dudettes. So while Adrian's not here, I guess we got some solo time, peeps and peoples. So yeah. This is the part of the stream that people might skip over. Maybe not. It's not a stream. It's not a stream. So I would just like to kind of talk a bit about. I don't know. See, the interesting thing is, I don't normally talk to a camera. I don't talk solo. I don't talk to myself. So I will say this is odd for me because for my conversational skills to work, there needs to be someone to riff off of. And this is very hard for me to find talking points, I'm not gonna lie. But I'm gonna go off at this point. So when I kind of talk to people, I see what they're interested in, I put feelers out. I try to sort of gauge what would interest them in a conversation. It's also easy because I can talk, I can listen, I can kind of make observation, and it also helps me to learn a lot about different people. So it definitely has that to it. Um, so I'm very malleable in a conversation a lot of the time. That's also how I try to come across for my players' characters. For any of you that want to DM, and you're not talking to a master class guy or some dude who knows everything. I'm a guy who started about a year and a half ago, and I still have no clue what I'm doing. Um, Basically, my thing is kind of see where your players want to go. Read their backstory, or kind of gauge what they want to do. I send out this like 10 to 20 question questionnaire about your character where it's like little details like are they a morning person? Do they have anger management problems? Like stuff like that. So you can kind of get a gauge of situations you can drop them in and see how they react. And the reason that I love it is because I can kind of predict how they react too. So I can build encounters a bit more thoroughly. So I'm not railroading, but it's more like playing a game of chess in my own mind. Where you kind of know how they're gonna do things, but you don't really know shit. You know nothing as a DM. And that's the other tip I'll give to new DMs, and something that I wish to hear from current DMs. And tell me I'm wrong. Nobody knows what the fuck we're doing. We don't even know half the time. I have no idea how to do this, how to do that. I just go with what works in the past and what people seem to enjoy. That's about it with that. But, let's talk a little bit about Lefty. Lefty was inspired by the sort of character art I found a very long while back when making some of my original characters. With Lefty, he sort of had this original vibe of like the spirit world that I wanted to portray, and like his blue visage and his electric blue energy. And I really did enjoy the sort of untouchableness of how he was. Because he was untouchable for a while until Jude gave him his scar on his, like, I think it's his left side. The only person I ever pierce him with a blade. So, it's things like that that stand out to me. Personally, that is. Maybe. And it's changes like that in a character that make them interesting. Because I've said it before, I'll say it now, and I'll keep saying it. I've never run romance. I've never looked to run romance. And I've never really aimed or tried or even wanted to run romance, but I don't know. It felt very natural coming out of the gate with sort of Lefty and Jude. Maybe not initially a romance, but sort of a see where it goes. And you know what? I feel like that worked out to the best of its strengths because it happened very naturally as it could. You know? Excuse me if my voice is going. I
have a bit of a cold.
but okay. But yeah, so there are a few character concepts that I've always wanted to run that I've never gotten to, and I guess this is the section where I get to talk about them. The first one is this Fathomless Warlock Fighter mix I call Perix. And Adrian is back. Who the fuck? Look at what this man walked into.
I don't know what I walked into.
Oh,
but
you walked
it's
into me
something-
talking to myself like a crazy person. If we watch back this YouTube video, it's going to literally be me 5 minutes of just me.
Fair enough. Where did we leave off?
I
Unless
don't
you want to
actually
finish your thought.
No, I think we're gonna leave that ambiguous and have people wait until I come back to that.
Oh, you're something.
Oh yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Oh yeah.
We were talking about camp, like something after Daddlin. I forgot. I think every tavern talk we have a spotlight for at least one.
I feel
player.
like we do, and I
Right?
think that's really nice.
Next one I'm gonna talk about freaking
Goose, Alma,
what?
Tolvid,
Nah,
Aaron.
Tolvid was good. Aaron.
Aaron.
One of my, probably my favorite coming out. Sorry, Daddlin, but he's just a DM legend.
Oh,
Just he's so freaking funny. He's really good at art.
he is. Oh my god, he is. Actually, when I originally wanted to like publish To Kill a Fae as a module, I messaged him. I was like, "Look, man, I have no money right now, but if this gets published, I will give you a portion of the profit." And he was like, "Sounds snazzy." And I was like, "Yes,
Classic Aaron.
yes,
Sounds
yes."
nasty to me,
And
buddy.
then neither of us got around to doing it. I was like, "Hey man, you busy?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh well, I decided
fair
not to
enough.
do To Kill a Fae as a module, so please tell me you didn't do any art because I would feel terrible." And you know, thank God, because I would have felt awful being like, "Oh yeah, no, I don't want this anymore."
He had
'Cause,
some
like,
dedication too,
He
man.
was.
Freaking, he got up at like he stayed up until like 3 a.m. to play my games.
He did the same for me, and you know, like, again, effort does not go unappreciated on our end. He was actually the one that helped me with the original Hirokama, like, sins.
Did he? What?
He did. He was the one that actually inspired Wrath a little bit. You know those little angry koi fish?
Yeah.
He was the one that turned me on to a yokai that is, like, called the tiger fish. And it's a little wrathful
Nice,
spirit
nice.
that like goes through the oceans, and it's actually perched on top of Japanese buildings as a sort of ward for evil spirits. So, you know, that's where the Sankana polearm came from. That's where Wrath's sort of like fishy, like water and storm aspect came from. Because originally with Wrath, I was just gonna have him be like a really angry dude with a bunch of weapons. And I was like, I don't like that. I don't love it. And then he turned me on to that, and I was like, and it turned out to be one of my favorite sins. My absolute favorite. And I loved it so much. I think the other one he helped inspire was, not Greed. I think it was actually Sloth. I was like, yeah, he's gonna just put people to sleep. He's gonna be an okay fight. Like, it's gonna be like that. And he's like, well, what if he's dead? And I'm like, what do you mean? And I was like, I'm listening. And he went, what if he's dead? Like, people keep saying he's dead. And yet, you know, he's alive, but in the dream world. And that's when I went, oh. So, that was the plan all along, you know? And I loved that too. Because, like, you encountered Sloth in the other game a lot earlier than you would have here.
Yeah, I noticed that.
So,
The comparisons.
I think that's also when I had less restraint as a DM.
Restraint.
Sort of. Yes, see, as a DM back then, I wanted to shuffle you around to the cool fights and just get to them. And I had no, like, sense of, we need to stay here for a little bit and have some downtime. And I still slightly struggle with that. You know, I still have the, we gotta move things along in me. But I'm getting better with it. You know, I'm definitely not
I like the slow
shuffling.
burn of this campaign.
It is better as a slow burn. Because, like, we could have it as Demon Slayer where we just go over to different districts and just mog people. But the slow burn definitely adds to it. You know? I think in the second half, it's gonna be a lot slower to find the sins. And I'm not gonna lie, I have a month for break. We're probably gonna finish this campaign next summer. Like, we're still
Yeah.
gonna be playing over breaks and stuff, but you know, it won't come to its final conclusion if it's done right until the summer, which I'm totally okay with, because means you guys get more time to explore these characters and explore the world and really toy with all these different concepts and delve into different plot lines. And you know, the sins aren't the only thing out there, but that's really the people that you've been fighting mainly right now. So it's definitely gonna be the sins kind of take a step back, and we're gonna bring in the six-fingered hand, maybe, or maybe the Suzume catch up, or the Rai clan surfaces again. So it's not one of those like Chekhov's gun things where it's, you know, no payoff to the setup. Like, I'm not gonna lie, if I don't take this slow and I didn't do what or if I'm not planning the things that I'm planning, the six-fingered hand would never come up again. You know, and that would be a really shitty sort of thing to do, where it's like, oh, they took this really powerful magical artifact and then they never show up again. Now, granted, if you don't look for them, they won't show up. But I will be peppering hints, at least, you know. Oh, this happens here, and you're not investigating it. But I like that mention from Jude, where she's like, I go into this shop, and I'm looking for anything six-fingered hand related. It's like, good. Because they're around. They're not just disappeared out of the world. You know?
Yeah, they don't just friggin'
Oh, absolutely.
The ether. They're still around. They're just the reason why you don't hear about them is because A, we don't ask about them, and B, because they're the six-fingered hand. They're an
quiet.
underground society.
Oh, yeah.
Only times you hear about their antics is when either somebody gets caught, somebody gets killed.
Pretty much. You know? They're not even recognized by most governments, because that's how in the shadows their operations are. You know, you don't hear Suzume samurai going after people with six-fingered tattoos. You don't think they would have done that if they knew about it or recognized it?
I love the six-fingered hand for like way more than we've actually interacted with them. They just seem so freaking rad. Just a bunch of fortune tellers.
Oh, absolutely. Fortune tellers, performers, acrobats, contortionists.
It's just a circus. It's a criminal circus.
It is literally the criminal circus, and the best part is, they're all used in combat.
Yeah.
I
can't wait for that.
Oh, it's gonna be
when we're just fighting like on a trapeze.
Oh yeah, no. You know, you get one of them with like a really long pole, and it's like, why is he so good with this pole arm? And it's like, he's a trapeze artist.
He's got 120 feet of movement. How? He's on a unicycle. It's like, oh.
He's on a unicycle.
He just starts approaching you, just one wheel, swords in hand. Just aggressively just
juggling aggressively.
Yeah.
Like Honk's clown nose with aggression, just hack,
oh
hack.
My god. Dude, I just had the craziest idea, dude. So So when I was helping you with the cards, right? The card
yes, the card.
Remember the bounty hunter with the cards?
Yes.
Like all that stuff. I just had an idea. What if we run into like a six-fingered hand? Next thing you know, like he just walks up and just unhinges his jaw, looks up and pulls a sword out of his throat and just says, let's do battle. It's like,
yeah. Just
yeah. That'd be so cool. Freaking oh my god, that's so freaking badass. I can just imagine it like Jude and Rafi and Alka walking to a room, like a final deal, like last chance to hand it over. Like, you're gonna have to pry it off our cold dead hands, buddy. It's like, fair enough. And then he walks out of the room, snaps his fingers, and just like a bunch of goons with no weapons walk in, just like look real mean mugging. And then just you expect to fight us with no weapons, and there's like, here we go. And they just open their mouths and all 5 of them draw swords out of their gullets. Like, oh
Oh.
my god, that'd be so like one of them pulls out like a ball and chain mace.
How'd that
It's
get
like
in?
it's like colored like the infinite like infinite ribbons. It's just
Oh
colored
my-
with like red, white, like red,
Red,
yellows,
white,
and
red,
greens.
white, red, white, and then you get like a little
Yeah.
spike at the end of it.
Yeah, and then it just clanks to the ground. That'd be so badass.
There's a
I
lot
think I-
of fun stuff you could do with that.
Oh my
mm,
god, dude! Like clown car, like instead of them all hiding like in an alleyway, they just all climb out of one barrel.
I feel like if I did that, that would be like menacing for like a moment, and then just how many of them are in that barrel?
Like 9 of them walk out, and then as the combat comes in, one of them knocks on the barrel, and 6 more pop back.
Just keep knocking on the barrel. Just
Yeah.
more
Like-
keep coming.
But then that'd be a cool like combat thing of like, all right, we gotta destroy the barrel.
Yes, that would be true. And then you destroy the barrel, and maybe there's like a tunnel under it. So it
Yeah.
really like pulls away the illusion too. It's like, oh my
'Cause they're-
god,
at
how
the
are
end
they
of the
coming
day-
out of here?
At the end of the day, not all of them are magic. They're performers. They have some ties to
Exactly.
magic, but
Some
Jude is
of
like
them.
the most powerful magician because she's a real magician.
Right.
But it's all trickery, smoke and mirrors, quite literally. They're all performers. They
Pretty
all know how to
much.
do theatrics. They all know how to hide things.
Yep. Nothing
So
is real.
cool. All right, it's
And
getting
that's-
late. I think
yeah.
we should close out. Let's
Alright.
end this thought and we'll close out.
After you.
We gotta hit that before we end this out. Okay, so you want me to end it?
Go for it.
Okay, well, that has been it for the second episode of the Tavern Talk. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate, you guys just kind of tuning in, making sure that keep up in touch with all of our antics, late night rendezvous, if you want to call it that. We're gonna have episode 3 at a nearer date. We're not quite sure. We're probably gonna have these roughly weekly, just because, it's kind of fun to just sit down and talk.
I would
We all
say
have
so.
time. Maybe we'll have a few, things we're doing along the side. Maybe some assignments as soon as college comes out. But we're definitely still gonna have these talks just because it's fun.
Oh,
Maybe
absolutely.
they're not all D&D related. Some of them are some past experiences, but
Right.
Tavern Talk, man. It's whatever you want to talk about over a pint and a few gold coins. So, thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you in the next Tavern Talk.
Peace, dudes.
Be sure to tip your bartender.